All right, guys. This is a little bit of lecture from across the world. Hopefully, I am safely in Vietnam, and you guys are here under the tutelage of the great Webb. So because of the missed school days due to the hurricanes, and then voting day, and the ACT day, this is the way we have to do it. So I'm going to try and do three quick units here, one on the Byzantine Empire in Russia, one on the Sui, Tang, and Song dynasties, and the early Middle Ages of Europe. So I wanted to give you guys a test or something this week. I really don't know that that's going to be possible, but you did get your break watching Pearl Harbor on Monday. So let's crush this. So bear with me. Try and take the notes, look at the book. I'm going to do the best we can here. And these are setup pieces, very important. As you know, we had the Roman Empire and it collapsed. And we got the Han Dynasty over in China, it's going to collapse. And there's all of these things going on roughly at the same time. Formation of China and Japan. Hopefully we've done that in class. Then there's the Byzantine Empire and the growth and spread of Islam. Those are things that I feel I need to be here for. So this stuff, while important, is pretty well cut and dry. And so the Byzantine Empire, it is known as the eastern half of the Roman Empire. So from Turkey, modern day Turkey, parts of Greece, on over to the Middle East and Africa. Justinian, the emperor we're going to talk about, believed he controlled everything all the way over to Rome. That is simply not true, and he reigns from the city of Constantinople, modern day Istanbul, right here in Turkey. And what's happening as the western half of the Roman Empire falls, the eastern part of the empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, was flourishing. As Rome has all of its trade routes and that hose kinked off, all of those things are still running over here. Constantinople was a stopping point before shipping to Rome. So they not only have access to the overland routes, but the sea routes as well. And so the Byzantine Empire is going to be successful for three main reasons. Many of the rich aristocrats who lived in Rome left with their wealth intact. They simply left the western part of the Roman Empire and they moved over to the eastern part where trade was flourishing. So they took not only their wealth, but their business and their intellectualism. All right? These were the smart people, the business leaders, the teachers, the educators, the movers and the shakers. They all moved to Constantinople East. Very similar to like in China during the Great Leap Forward when Mao Zedong is in power. A lot of the business leaders and intellectuals fled to Hong Kong and to Taiwan. Their money goes with you. Number two, Constantinople was located on the shores of the Bosphorus, this body of water that links the Mediterranean Sea, the Aegean Sea, and the Black Sea. It's very, very safe. The city was surrounded by mountains on one side and water on the others. There was only one harbor, and that was the only way you could attack Constantinople, which was from the sea. So it makes it very, very difficult to attack. Number three, the Byzantine Empire, as I said, had access to the trade routes coming out of Asia, North Africa, and even a little bit from Europe. The Silk Road from China, the Spice Road from India, wheat and food from Egypt were making it up there. Even slaves and ironwork from the more difficult areas for the barbarians to reach in the Western Roman Empire made it over there. Its geographical location simply allowed it to have access to money and trade that was not disrupted by the barbarian invasions in Western Europe. The Byzantine Empire however, will experience a quick rise to a golden age. It'll be a meteor. And that reason is because the Byzantine Empire was an extension of the old Roman Empire. All the whole hard work, all the foundation, the roads, the city building, the tax collection, all that was already done. So the Byzantine Empire just had to maintain it. And they do continue, due to their location, that Alexander the Great Hellenistic blend of not only, Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Indian, but now we've got Roman culture, Christian culture, and now even Chinese culture being added to the mix as we're going back and forth across the Silk Road. Eventually, while they come out of the gate fast and reach their high point, their golden age in the 500s, they enter a period of slow, steady decline, very similar to their Western Roman ancestor, but it takes a long time. So the Byzantine Empire's golden age is in the 500s, right as Western Europe is falling deeply into this dirty, nasty, dark ages, which we're going to talk about shortly. And the first guy, here's Constantinople. Oh, there it is. 3 sides, key trade routes coming in and out of Asia. So anyway, I got to stick to my PowerPoint here. One of the guys that we are going to talk about is the reign of Emperor Justinian. Justinian was the emperor at the greatest height of the Byzantine Empire. He is their big #1 personality to know. And he reigns from its golden age, 527 to 565 BC, or AD, excuse me. We made that flip. Now Justinian, as I said, thought that he controlled the entire Roman Empire, and he will waste a lot of time and money and energy trying to reconquer the whole thing, and it kind of undoes his wealth. But he is not successful, and his attempts at reconquering and laying dominance all the way over to here will eventually bankrupt him and cause his decline. Now, the power behind Justinian will be his wife, Theodora. Now, she was a former peasant, and this is how the story goes. The older man, Justinian, was riding through the market. He turns and he looks, and he's like, whoa, what is that? Off to the side, there was a dancing club, and there is the young 19-year-old Theodora doing like a pole dancing routine. He's like, whoa, ba-ba-boom, we've got to go in here. And he goes in, and there's the beautiful peasant girl Theodora, who is a dancer, we'll say exotic one. And he instantly falls in love with her, and they get married. So she goes, literally, the old story, the peasant to the queen. And Theodora was not simply Justinian's wife. A lot of people think she was his backbone. She was his spinal column. She would sit in on governance meetings. And there was a riot one day in Constantinople when things just weren't going very well. And Justinian's advisors said, flee, my king, flee, emperor. These people are going to get you. And Theodora says, my God, you're the king. Put this rebellion down. If your advisors are too wimpy to do it, I'll do it. She reaches over, grabs a sword from one of them, and starts marching out the door. And all of a sudden, Justinian was like, no, that's not right. I am not going to flee. I'm going to send the army, and I'm going to put this rebellion down. And he does brutally. But it was the instigation, it was the leadership and the example set by Theodora, not wanting to be shown up by his wife, instead of his wimpy advisors, puts Justinian on point, and he handles the rebellion. He brutally subjugated it, in large part due to the leadership of his wife. Now, besides that, Theodora turns out to be a very good politician. And she was strong enough at times to question her husband's authority. She made her own decisions when it came to different things in an era of women were very well subjugated and repressed. Women did not have a lot of power. So Theodora is one of the closest things we will see to Queen Hatshepsut in a long time. And she goes out and works for the empire and her husband. She proved to be a very good diplomat. She negotiated trade and peace treaties with the Persian Empire. And as she traveled, she had a soft spot for the poor people, since she had previously been one. So she starts to look how to aid them, and she builds hospitals, and she was always looking out for the rights of women. She was a women's rights advocate, saying that there were things, women could do any of the things that the men could be doing. So she really pumps up humanitarian aid. She's an excellent ambassador and diplomat and a human rights advocate. Unfortunately, while she was still very young, we believe that Theodora dies of cancer. And while Justinian will continue to reign for about 20 more years without her, once she died, like, he just kind of fell apart. Like, his personality and his energy went. He was kind of depressed, and the Byzantine Empire starts to fade with him. However, during his reign, Justinian is going to decide to revise the very confusing Roman legal code system. And by confusing, I simply mean that he created what is known as the body of civil law, or the Corpus Juris Civilis, right here. And the problem is that Rome had so many laws. Every emperor could rule by edict, meaning whatever the emperor said became a law. And you go back and you go forth, and you go back and you go forth, and some of these laws were contradictory. Some of them were redundant. Which one do you abide by? Both of them are emperors. And Justinian says, that's it, that's enough. I'm going to get a team of scholars, and we're going to sift through all these laws. We're going to find the redundant ones and the contradictory ones, and we're going to pick the one we're going to use, and we're going to throw them out. And we are going to streamline this, and we are going to make it deeply efficient. So he puts together the Corpus Juris Civilis right here. Whoops, I can aim. Now, as he puts these Byzantine scholars to work to find out what laws will work for him and what laws will not, the Corpus Juris Civilis will have a big impact later on the role of the church and the role of government in Western Europe. Not the Byzantine Empire, but when we get back to the Eastern Empire. Monarchs of the High Middle Ages during the nation-building period, where England and France and Spain become modern nations, they model their laws on Justinian's principles. And the reason that they do that is because the laws that Justinian wisely picks were ones that greatly augmented his power. I want to choose the laws that are going to help me. And so Justinian wants to use the Corpus Juris Civilis as a tool to kind of unite the empire. However, once again, he was the sole ruler with complete and total authority. Very similar to the Roman emperors of old. He maintains a very large bureaucracy to help carry out his laws and his government. And because it extended from the good part, the part with vitality and life of the Roman Empire, it was pretty efficient. And this is super important. Justinian enjoyed one other part of his power, his dominant power, that was not present in Western Europe. And that is, he had power over the Eastern Orthodox Church. In Rome, in the old western part of the empire, there is going to be the Bishop of Rome, who will eventually be known as the Pope. And over in the east, we have the Emperor. The Pope is the head of the Roman Catholic Church. Well, in the east, it is the Byzantine Emperor. So he is in charge of what is known as the Eastern Orthodox Church. Christianity is very similar, but there are some subtle differences that become a big-time distraction and disruption. So Justinian was seen as the co-ruler with Christ on earth. He was the head of the church. So the Eastern Empire, the Byzantine Empire, will have a deeply intertwined church and state. The government and the church were combined. The church was a body, a part of the bureaucracy. It was one department of Justinian's bureaucracy, where in the West, according to Aristotle, we are always going to staunchly maintain a separation of church and state. Justinian liked to say in the Byzantine Empire there was one God, there was one religion, and there was one empire. One God, one religion, one empire. And it was meant to kind of unite the people of the Byzantine Empire. So here's some of Justinian's legal codes. We don't really have time to go through those, so we will do it right now. Justinian, like his old predecessors, will build a 14-mile defensive wall to keep the city safe from invaders. By the sea coast, he had this nice giant moat, and he also built a lot of aqueducts, like my man Julius Caesar. He also built many courts of law as a result of the Corpus Juris Civilis, and schools. He wanted his people to be literate. So, there we go. Now, the biggest thing he builds was the Hagia Sophia, the Church of Holy Wisdom, which has now been converted into an Islamic mosque, but they left some of the frescoes in there, which is interesting since having art portray humans, especially religious figures, is forbidden in Islam. But here is the Hagia Sophia right now. Pretty good place if you ever want to go and check it out. We're going to get back to the Black Plague here later on. I know you guys all dig that and you think it's really cool. Yay. But anyway. So we're back here to Justinian. And the Eastern Orthodox Church is going to differ from that of Roman Catholicism in several ways. These are they're small, but they become important as we go through period 3 in the Middle Ages. The first way they're different, we know, is simply that of church leadership. In the Byzantine Empire, Justinian, the emperor, is the head of the church. He oversees and he controls church affairs. The emperor appointed what is known as a patriarch, as in patriarchal, like a father. And the patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church is the department head in charge of the religion. It would be as if the government of Italy, the president of Italy, was in charge of the church, and the Pope was the department head in charge of religion. The patriarch is the secretary of religion in modern governmental speak. So, the patriarch is subservient to the emperor, but he is the head official of the church who reports to the emperor. Similar to how a cardinal or an archbishop would report to the Pope. They are subservient to the Pope in the Roman Catholic Church. Secondly, The church had control over the lives of Christians. At this time, life was bad. So you looked to the afterlife, which was going to be good and glorious, than the hard life here on earth. And Roman Catholics believed that the Pope controlled the lives of all Christians. This is opposite of what is believed in the Eastern Orthodox Church. All right, there's no Pope. He is assisted by the Patriarch of the Eastern Orthodox Church. Third difference is that priests, all right, could marry and have families. So, to explain what I'm saying further, in the Roman Catholic world, the Pope controlled the lives of the followers, the word of one guy. In the Eastern world, it is the entire church. It's not one entity, it's the entire church bureaucracy makes decisions for the benefit of everyone. I want to be clear on that. When Roman Catholicism, it's one guy. The other big difference is that in the Eastern Orthodox Church, priests could marry and have families, but hierarchical members like monks, bishops, and priests still cannot do that. In the Roman Catholic Church, priests are forbidden to marry, and it is that way to this day. Don't know for how much longer, but that's the way it is. Number 4, Roman Catholics cannot use leavened bread for the communion. All right, it is a unleavened bread, very similar to what was used in the Feast of Passover in the Judaic world. Eastern Orthodox priests could use leavened bread. It's about the yeast. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but yet it really is. And the biggest difference is the dispute over religious images or icons. Statues, pictures, paintings, stained glass images of Jesus and Mary and Joseph and other saints. The Byzantine Emperor Leo III in 753 is going to outlaw the practice of using religious icons. And the idea behind that was it might have been to pacify and bring peace with the war ongoing with the spread of Islam. In the Roman Catholic world, you cannot pray for yourself 24 hours a day. So you ask a saint to do it for you. So there'll be a statue of like Mary here. And you light a candle when you ask Mary to pray for you. You're not worshiping Mary, you're just asking for her help because after all, she's Jesus' mom, and who can get you better help than mom? That's the idea, but it was strictly forbidden. It's called the iconoclastic controversy in 753. As a result of this, of banning statues and works of art, the Pope excommunicated, means kicked out of the church, the Byzantine emperor, and Leo III then kicked out the Pope from the Eastern Orthodox Church, and this will result in what is known as the Great Schism, the separating between the Eastern and Western versions of Christianity in 1054. It was the permanent split between the two churches as the Pope and the Patriarch and the Emperor had a good time excommunicating each other. The other big difference, doesn't sound that big, but yet it is, in Western Europe, they believe in a thing known as the Nicene or the Apostles' Creed. If you go to church, you probably have said this, where you believe in the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, it's called the Holy Triangle or the Holy Trinity. God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are one entity. They are 3 parts of one whole. In the Eastern Orthodox Empire, they believe in what is known as the Arian Creed. We'll talk more about this in Western Rome, A-R-I-A-N. And what that simply is, God the Father and the Son are one. The Holy Spirit is separate. It's not a complete triangle. It's 2 entities, 2/3 and 1/3. And that is going to cause big differences. So here is the splitting of the church and the Great Schism. So Eastern Orthodox Christianity is primarily held in Greece and in Turkey, and going on up into the Ukraine and southern Russia. It's all the blue. Where the red from Scandinavia over into Italy, Western Europe is all Roman Catholicism or Western Christianity. Whether it's Lutheranism or Methodism, it all adheres to that Nicene Creed. It's complicated. I'll talk more about that when I get back. The Great Schism conflict between the emperor and the pope starts the long collapse of the Byzantine Empire. The emperors were struggling and had been led by some weak emperors. And now they get engaged in a war trying to dominate Western Europe. While they were fighting in Western Europe, they were also taking on what is known as the Sassanid Empire in Persia. So they're fighting on two fronts. And there is the growing spread of the new religion of Islam coming from the south. So the Byzantine Empire is fighting in West, they're fighting in Asia, and they're fighting in North Africa and Southern Asia. So the Byzantine Empire is constantly fighting someone, which is a drain on their reserves and on their manpower. This forces a drastic call for help in 1090 when the Byzantine emperor says, oh my God, I'm fighting in this direction, and I'm fighting in this direction, and I'm fighting in this direction. Oh my God, who can I call on for help to defeat these Muslims and other barbarians? And he says, oh my God, the only place I can ask for help for is from the West. And so the Emperor Communist is forced to recognize the existence of the Roman Catholic Pope, that he has an equal in the West, when he asked Pope Urban II for help to relieve the pressure on Constantinople. Pope Urban II will help launch the First Crusade. His goal was to help maybe reunify and repair that fracture. And so the First Crusade will provide military assistance from Rome to the Byzantine Empire. And while there are 8 crusades, it is only the very first one. The First Crusade is the only crusade that actually worked. The pressure on Constantinople was relieved. The knights move on down and they recapture Jerusalem in July of 1099. However, Pope Urban really wanted that reunification, but the First Crusade had a lot of negative effects. Number one, as the Western European knights came over here, they behaved so badly. Their manners were so barbaric. Like they burped and they belched and they ate with their hands. They didn't have good etiquette and manners. And when they wanted something, they weren't accustomed to, in the Western European world, just seizing it. They didn't pay for it, and they were dirty and nasty. And people of the Byzantine Empire are like, oh my God, these ruffians are so bad. Why do we even need them? It also created a trade rivalry with the independent Italian trading states. And Italy began to capitalize, or the Italian trading states began to get into the merchant trade, trading with everyone around the Mediterranean, further draining money from the Byzantine Empire's coffers. In the year 1453, to foreshadow this, after several failed, stupid crusades, the Ottoman Empire in 1453 and Emperor Mehmed II will capture the city of Constantinople and will rename it Istanbul. Mehmed gave the Byzantine Emperor a chance to leave, but he chose to stay and fight, saying, an emperor without Constantinople isn't an emperor at all. So he is killed and the Byzantine Empire collapses. So anyway, contributions of the Byzantine Empire are many. The Byzantine Empire was built upon many Hellenistic ideas, but adding in that Chinese and Roman and Christian flavor as well. They made great advancements in artwork, especially in mosaics or colored tiles that will form to make pictures. Muslims do this very well, making beautiful Egyptian art, beautiful mosaic art. They made further use of the Roman arch and the dome, but the Roman dome is more conical. Think of like the United States Capitol building, where the Byzantine dome is flatter. So think of like a dome on a sports stadium in like, Atlanta or in Detroit, or the Superdome. It covers a wide area and is flatter instead of more round and shorter like the Capitol building. So the Byzantine artwork made the Bible pop to life in colorful pictures, sort of like a graphic novel. And they began to use pillars and other structures, like if you saw on the Hagia Sophia, if you can look on the PowerPoint, hopefully that you guys have. They used architecture that blended Greek and Roman and Persian and Arabic and Egyptian building styles. Things that were started by Alexander the Great. So I just have to go back. I know it's a long way, and maybe we'll come back and do some of this Black Plague stuff because you guys all think it's cool. So if we take a look at the Hagia Sophia, you can see the flatter, wider area of the dome, and the tall Islamic, minarets where the muezzin goes, kind of blends architecture from all over, and then the mosaic art and fresco right here. So one of the things that we should not forget to mention is a lot of this stuff were building styles that were used by our man Alexander the Great as he began to really bring that Hellenism to life. But most importantly, while the Western European world was collapsing and fading into what we know as the Dark Ages, it was the Byzantine scholars, along with the Hebrew and Arabic scholars, who will preserve all of that classical learning. Those ideas from the House of Muses were brought over and preserved in Constantinople. Everything going all the way back to ancient Greece. So Constantinople was a repository of culture and learning. And after the Ottoman Empire conquers the Byzantine Empire, many of the scholars and teachers in Constantinople will go back to Europe. They will reverse migrate, and this will begin the re-education and the cultural flowering in what we know as the Renaissance. So learning happens in the West, it's taken and preserved and added onto in the East, and then it goes back westward again and ends the High Middle Ages and mercifully brings in the Renaissance. And so what we are going to do right now is we are going to discuss the formation of Mother Russia. Va vas lublu, my little capitalistic Americans. I will not teach whole thing in this voice, but could be much funny. Mr. Charles Webb over here is like, oh yes, Russian accent, like, Karl Marx. See Webb? That stuff is terrible. It's Adam Smith. But anyway, it's fun. You guys act like I hear, I talk Mr. Webb, and you like this, and it's good. So, buja vista. Let's go and talk about formation of Mother Russia. Alright. The first Russian civilization will grow right here in what we know as southern Russia. Today it is the Ukraine. And the Ukraine is located in what is known as the steppe, which is a gigantic, flat, wide open prairie with no natural barriers. It's like being in Montana, east of the Rocky Mountains and looking all the way towards North and South Dakota, all the way to Minnesota. It's just flat. And it stretches from Europe all the way over into Asia. Now, Northern Europe or northern Russia, all right, has a lot of mountains and forests, good wood and lumber. But the south has a lot of good rivers that the people used for transportation and farmland. They could use the rivers to move back and forth in this flat area, well watered. It had good soil from the Ice Age, good farmland, wide open. It's here that Russian civilization begins. That's why Vladimir Putin says is where civilization starts. So, now Russia is the largest country in the world. All right, thing is big. It stretches from the Pacific Ocean in Asia all the way over to the Ural Mountains. And east of the Ural Mountains, people have a more Asiatic, influence and ethnicity to them. The Ural Mountains, about 2/3 of the way across. When you cross over to the west side, people look more Scandinavian or European. But Russia really gives credence and validity to the word Eurasia. Europe and Asia, one big continent. The Ural Mountains in Russia are the dividing line. So, that is good to know. So, the people of Russia were Slavic, all right, meaning that they spoke Indo-European Slavic languages. When you hear the word Slav, it means you are Russian descended from this area. Now, during Roman times, they did not have any wide-scale political organization. Instead, they had tribal clans like the German barbarians between 700 and 800 that were eventually unified by the great King Charlemagne. But around that time, 700 to 800, a new group of individuals rolls into town known as the Vikings. And the Vikings traveled the good waterways coming out of the North Sea down into what is today Russia. And the Russians and the Vikings are the Russians are the only group of people that the Vikings never really went to war with. They kind of lived in peace, which is shocking for the Vikings. And they kind of blended and assimilated their cultures to build a wonderful city of Kiev. And Kiev is going to create a transportation link to the city of Constantinople. Right? It is going to set up, come back. So, up in here, we're going to be able to come on down over the Black Sea and get to Constantinople and get up in here via the riverways to Kiev. A very important highway. And eventually the Vikings are slowly going to be absorbed into Russian society. The Byzantine Empire will then, as a result, will send missionaries up into Russia to convert them to Christianity. In 860, right about the time where Western Europe, Charlemagne's grandsons are dividing up Western Europe, causing more chaos, the missionaries combined Greek and Cyrillic writing to write the Bible in a language that the Slavic people could understand. All right? And you hear that saying, it's all Greek to me. Well, if you ever go to Western Europe, even if you don't understand the language, you could read the road signs and kind of figure things out. You get to Greece, Russia, man, it looks completely different. So it's very difficult for Westerners if you don't have a background to understand. But it was done by the Byzantine missionaries to help the Slavic people understand Christianity. And in 957, the princess of Kiev will convert to Christianity. This will enable the religion to spread even more widely. Now, her grandson will marry the last Byzantine princess, further unifying Eastern Europe, Turkey, Byzantine Empire, and Russia. So that is why that it is the Eastern Orthodox or Russian or Greek Orthodox that goes on up into Russia to this very day. Now this union between the Byzantine Empire and Russia fosters a written language that again helps spread Christianity and also creates an educated religious clergy. Russia will also begin to adopt Byzantine art, music, and building techniques. So we will see this in St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow eventually. Russian rulers early on also form very close ties with the church. And the Christian church in Russia becomes known as the Russian Orthodox Church. I'm going to pause it there. I think it's been about 40 minutes. You can ask Mr. Webb questions. He's got my notes. Take a minute to confer with each other. I know this has been a lot, but again, this is on YouTube. If you need to go back and listen to it again, it is there. When I get back, we are going to combine all of this into a test before we head for a winter break. I'll see you in a few minutes.